Hey everybody, Danny Diamond here. You're in the Diamond Mine. Cheers to you. Okay, well today, or tonight, this morning, it's either very, very late at night or very, very early in the morning as I tape this. This list has actually been really challenging. At first, I had, a top 10, but with several ties in it, an honorable mention, and then I said, well, that's silly. Let me expand it to a top 15. And then it turned into, well, if I'm going to include this, I've got to mention this band, and then there were more ties, and then I just said, it was turning into a top 25 and headed towards the top 30, and I said, this thing's going to be 3 hours long if I don't just go ahead and trim it down to the top 10. So there are some bands that I dearly love that did not quite make the list, ranging from REM to Queens of the Stone Age to Gin Blossoms. My three favorite decades for rock music, they go in this order: 70s, 80s, 90s. I started to call this top 10 grunge bands list, and that was too limiting. And then top 90s bands list, and that was too limiting because several of these bands started prior to 1990. So anyway, we're just going to jump in. At number 10, I have, and by the way, I always show the album that made me a fan of the band. So it's not necessarily the first album by that band. It's the album that got me into the band. So we're going to kick off at number 10, Smashing Pumpkins. I believe this came out around 1993. Siamese Dream. I remember I borrowed the tape from a neighbor across the way in the apartment I was living in at the time, and it took me something like 6 months to give the tape back to him. Still love this album to this day. One of those perfect rock records. You can expect album rankings coming for just about every band on this list. So that's my number 10. Number 9, and this is an example of this band's been around since the 80s. This came out in 1989. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mother's Milk. Got to give a shout out to my buddy Brad Wilson, is actually the one who turned several of my group of friends onto this record. Brought the tape over to, we'll call it the basement. Let's see, Rich, you know what I'm talking about. But good Lord, we listened to this thing just nonstop for ages, and this still holds up. Might be my favorite Chili Peppers album to this day. I don't know. There's a ranking on this coming soon, but fantastic. One other thing I noticed as I was making this list is how phenomenal the drummers are in these bands, and this is no exception. So, number 9, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Number 8, Foo Fighters, and The Color and the Shape. It was the song "My Hero." I had been a Nirvana fan. Speaking of bands that barely missed making the list, I'd been a Nirvana fan, and then when the first Foo Fighters record came out, I didn't appreciate it very much at the time. Now I like it a good bit, but the song that turned me on to the band is "My Hero," and this is a fantastic album. I think it's probably, in my opinion, their second best record. We'll get to a ranking soon with these guys, but phenomenal record from a great band that's still going today. Speaking of bands that are still going pretty strong here, man, what an impact this made when it came out. Pearl Jam, the 10 album. I was in my first band. We were together from 1991 to 92, and we were playing so much of this music. We would do even flow, and I would sing the vocals on it. This band is just one of those bands that the main thing that just comes to mind when I think of them is passion. They're just the musical embodiment of passion. Let's see here. Next up, we have Faith No More, Angel Dust is the album that really, really got me into them. Of course, I was aware of the monster hit Epic, and I liked that. Um, I probably now maybe like that album even better than this one, but this is the one that my bandmates got me into, and I just adore this album. They are such a difficult band to describe. You just have to hear them. Super eclectic and super stylistically diverse. No one sounds like Faith No More but Faith No More, and another monster drummer in this band as well. Up next, my sister always calls U2 the greatest rock band of all time. I can understand how she could say that. Fantastic band. They come in at number 5 on this list. The album that got me into them was their third album, 1983's War. I remember my best friend at the time had this on vinyl, and we listened to it a good bit. Great record. At number 4 for me, another band that's associated with the 90s but came out prior to, Jane's Addiction. The Nothing Shocking record that came out in '89. Just a perfect rock album to me. The incredible drumming from Stephen Perkins. Dave Navarro, I think, is actually an underrated guitar player. I love the layering that he does with his guitars. Perry Farrell is, he's not going to sing opera, but he's a very, very exciting and unique vocalist. And it's not technically, it's not Geddy Lee, but the Eric Avery's bass parts on this record really are a very important part of the band's sound. So Jane's Addiction is at number 4. Number 3 for me, Stone Temple Pilots. I've seen this band more than anyone else on this list, and I remember running into Evan Olson at one of the shows, and he called them the band of the 90s. When you look at the hits these guys had, it's kind of hard to argue with that. But their first album is terrific. I'd probably put their second album at the height of my list, but this is a fantastic record. I've done a lot of the tunes from this band over the years, including, of course, Plush, Wicked Garden, Creep, just off this album. And there's other songs I've done from other albums as well. Pardon me. At number 2 for me, this was tough. I love these guys, and I actually got into them, I think, a little earlier than maybe your mainstream rock fans, because I was fortunate enough to see them on the campus of Florida State University on this tour. Soundgarden, Louder Than Love. I remember, this was not a huge venue. This was basically a cafeteria that that I saw this show at, and I remember thinking, "Good Lord, this singer is absolutely amazing." He's sort of an update on Robert Plant. He is peeling the paint off the walls with the power of his voice. And again, another super drummer in this band. Kim Thale is a little sloppy, but a very exciting guitar player. There's a lot of Middle Eastern flavors here. Soundgarden is kind of the 90s sound, even though this came out in '89. But sort of the grunge sound mixed with a lot of classic rock elements. Sort of a marriage in some ways between punk, Zeppelin, and Sabbath. Fabulous band with, probably the greatest singer of his generation at the helm. Okay, so R.I.P. Chris Cornell. But as you may hear in the background, my number one alternative band of all time. I just love, love, love these guys. Alice in Chains. This came out in 1990. You know, one thing that was difficult about making this list was it made me feel about 9,000 years old, because I can remember, even a few years ago catching myself thinking, I'm into some newer bands like Alice in Chains. Well, they've been around 30 years as of this year, folks, and they really deserve induction into the Rock Hall of Fame, as does Soundgarden, and really every band on this list that hasn't made it in yet deserves to be in there. So hopefully that'll happen eventually. But we've gone through 10 bands in about coming up on 11 minutes. So I'm going to just thank you now for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you haven't already, please do. And until I see you again, please come back to the mine often and enjoy life. Peace.